welcome back to our podcast, Women Who Build. Today we have the awesome Tiv Mohammed, who is a CTO, an expert AI contributor at Snorkel AI, a single mother of 4, a DoD veteran with over 10 years of government service, a human rights advocate, a founder, and a person who defines herself by one phrase: mountain goat energy. She climbs every time she falls. Today we're going to talk about what built different actually means for this woman who builds, how military culture shaped her approach to building from scratch, and why she speaks up about cyberbullying instead of staying quiet. Also, what she sees from inside AI development that worries her most, as well as why she refuses to pick one lane when the problems she cares about do not stay neatly separated. Tiv, welcome.
Thank you so much. That is quite the introduction. I really appreciate it. Thank you so
You're
much.
so
Happy to be
welcome.
here.
You're so welcome. I'd love to start with a little bit of background. Look, you grew up as a military kid, moving constantly with no permanent base. How did that shape the way you approach building things from scratch?
Well, I will tell you that I was lucky enough to be the youngest of 5, so I was the last duty station. But what I learned is there's a big difference between civilian life. Even though I was in active duty in the military, being a military kid, you really do cling on to that lifestyle. So being in the civilian sector now, I just noticed such a big difference. We were really, really sheltered, not even just in my own home where we were raised Apostolic Pentecostal, but the military life altogether. And what it really taught me was discipline. It went right into the marching band too. So I started in the marching band. I told all my kids, you can pick the instrument, but you can do whatever, just be in the band. Being in a military community, the marching band they functioned the same way. They were all military. So it really taught us to really have a lot of self-respect for everything that we do. I mean, at the end of the day, that's why I understand credit, because that is a direct reflection of me. So anything that I've ever done, I really want to take a lot of pride in, and I really understand processes, and I try to understand why we need to do things the way we do, because if we can understand the logic of things, then we are happy to kind of do them. I don't know if that makes sense, but I just really learned a lot of self-discipline and self-respect. I believe that we have to have both. We have to be able to respect ourselves. Otherwise, how can we expect someone else to? Which is why we do our best. But that has really helped me go into the civilian sector and really try to shine. I guess a lot of things that might be difficult for other people, oh, they're difficult. But when you come from a life of struggle and climbing, I don't have any
Yeah.
nails, you will climb. So yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is I learned self-respect and self-discipline.
I love that. And yeah, because you spent over 10 years inside the Department of Defense and Veterans Affairs, right?
Yes.
So I guess that was the main thing it taught you then, self-discipline.
Yes, and really camaraderie. Camaraderie. You never know who you're gonna need, and you really run across the same people. Like you may go to another duty station, and it really teaches you, hey, every action has a reaction. So something you might do here, people are gonna remember that. Oh, I'm leaving. I'm out of here. No, 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 no. You really do take you everywhere that you go. So it also made me understand that things that and we can talk about that later too. But some of the things that we do in our life, those are going to stay with us. So we can't change the past, but we can learn from the past and use those at the next duty station.
Yeah,
Use those.
absolutely. Absolutely, we can. I think sometimes the dots only connect when we look back, right? And that's certainly relevant for your story. And look, I noticed that you named your company TAMG Solutions after your 4 children. Tell me about that decision.
But I've worked, like you said, for the Department of Defense for most of my adult career. And when I got out, I'm going into some maybe bring down the mood a little bit, but I was married to a service member and he was probably none too happy about me leaving. There was some domestic issues, I'll just say domestic issues for the sensitivity of it. But I finally, after 12 years, I left. I mean, the coast is clear. I had 3 backpacks, one for me, one for each of my children, and we left. And that was really difficult. You can never tell someone to leave. They have to be ready. Like you can tell somebody, they can come and say, hey, you should talk to that person. The person's not going to leave until they've just said, no, 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 this is not going to stop. It'll stop. It will stop, but not usually with a good happy ending. So anyway, I decided to go ahead and leave. And then I thought, what am I going to do? Because he made it very difficult for me to be able to work in the civilian sector. It seems like I would do great, for, 3 weeks a month, and then I would have issues. And so anyway, I remember crying on the floor in my bedroom at my mother's house, and I was like, bawling, just not and everything. I'm like, Lord, how am I gonna do this? How am I gonna get out of this situation? And it just hit me that I had to climb so high. This, I say it all the time. I have to climb so high that he can't reach. That goes into the mountain goat. Have you ever seen like those goats that are in the trees? Like
Yeah.
with hoofed feet. Talking with hoofed feet. Goats can climb the highest and steepest, the craziest places. Like, what are you even doing up there? That's where I wanted to go. So I knew that the only way that I could, even if you want to keep trying to do all this stuff to destroy me, I'm up here. You know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
knew my goal was not about success. My goal was not about, one day making millions or billions of dollars, which I'm not gonna be mad at that either. But that wasn't the goal. The goal was simply survival and trying to come up with a strategy and say, okay, talk about lemons, trying to make the best out of a very difficult situation. And the process was really, really difficult to say the least. But that was the steepest mountain. And when I walked across that stage, I had to walk up, and if you see my graduation walk, my knees were almost touching my chest.
Wow.
There, that was a very proud moment.
Yeah, incredibly. I mean, just having enough fire in your belly to go, nah, I'm not doing that. I'm doing this, and moving with that is incredible and really inspirational. And I noticed that from there, you actually won a trip to Paris in your first year in medical sales, which was the first kind of endeavor. I'd love to hear what that taught you about what you're actually capable of, because I know it must have been a journey, and not every step would you have believed in yourself, but there must have been these little rungs along. It struck me that that was one of them.
Shout out to every single doctor out there that might be watching this. I really got a lot of support from doctors globally, and I really appreciate all the support you guys gave me. So what happened is when I left the Department of Defense, I moved into the civilian sector and worked for a Fortune 500 company. I'll leave their name out, but I used to do kind of the bot. I was the bot, but I was real, okay? Where sales reps could come in and say, "Hey, can we get this doctor and a different deal?" And we're like, "Well, how much are they talking about spending?" I knew how to get like the little agreements and distribution agreements and all that. So, and then quantity and cost margin, I knew all that stuff. To the point where these sales reps were waiting for me because they knew the information was right. They're like, no, we want Tiv. So finally, somebody was like, Tiv, come on, why don't you just be a sales rep? You know all the business. So that's what I did. So I had left, and I went into the independent, to be an independent B2B, business to business, outside medical, durable medical equipment sales rep. And I had this huge, all these shelves, like anything you could want medical sales. You want Tilby, you want, what do you want? So what I decided was, I said, I have to zero in on one product. And it was one specific product. I said, I like it. So it made sense to me, and I must have read every single thing, watched every video, did all the calls just for this specific product. Then I found out who the target audience was, and I found out about every single patient that could benefit from that product. But I'm not gonna listen. Let me just put it this way. I went in there. It was so embarrassing too. Okay. A pinstripe shirt, right? Like the
Old
ones that we
fashioned.
wear, they're nice and, see-through when they get wet. I went to go pick up the lunch because it was a lunch, let me show you my product and we'll have a lunch. So I went and picked up a Subway, huge platter. They got the tea and all that stuff. That's out of pocket, by the way. You guys are welcome. But anyway, I got the lunch, and as soon as I was getting ready to turn into their office, it started pouring down rain. I don't even know where it came from. There was
No.
like just whoosh.
Oh
So
dear.
I pulled in and I just sat there and I just was like, yep. So I had no idea that all the people in the office were women. So that was really, really good. So I sat there, it was not letting
They
up.
understood.
I'm a country girl, so I had two towels in the back because we went crawfishing. So I went to the door and I was like, I have a lunch here. So they was like, oh my gosh, just come on in. But they were so shout out to everybody there. But they were really, really sweet. and then they just let me dry off. They were like, go, 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 dry off, because you could see through everything was wet. So then I came in and I was so nervous. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to set everything up and leave these pamphlets here. And if you guys have any questions, this was my first doctor's office. That's another thing. It was the first doctor's office. And I was like, I'm just going to go ahead and go. I felt like a mess. And this girl said, she said, you listen to me. You need to sell your stuff. You came in
Brilliant.
here, you bought that lunch, you set the whole thing up, you're drenched. Sell your stuff, because if you don't, as soon as you walk out, we're throwing that stuff away. We're throwing those pamphlets away. So I did get a deal, and I did make it to Paris just on that one clinic, because I ended up basically setting up camp there. Big shout out, Jen Royce. I love you. I took her to Paris with me, but we had a waiting list and everything. But that came to a halt because of the pandemic. So you weren't getting into doctors' offices anymore.
No.
So I had to hustle. I had to scrimp, real quick. What am I going to do? And that's when I decided I want to sell the same doctors. I told him, I said, I'm coming back. I'm coming back and I'm going to sell. I'm going to be a doctor. I'm not going to be diagnosing the same kind of virus. I'll be diagnosing computer viruses. So I'm hoping I can go back in with my own software that's built and do some of the ones that can integrate to medical doctors' offices and stuff.
Yeah, and what an amazing thing. And it's incredible that you remember all of that so vividly, because again, it's these pivotal moments, and we only know when we look back about these moments that have really shaped the direction we take in the future. I just think that's incredible. Look, Tiv, before we kind of move into some of the AI stuff you're up to, I just have to say you are one heck of a busy lady. I just want to know, first of all, what a typical week actually looks like for you at the moment.
I had to cut back. I'm really, really busy. There's just not enough hours. I wish there was more and more that I could stay awake, but I had to cut back. I have to give a shout out also to I'm not even lying, through my entire time of going to school while we had this lovely pandemic going on, DoorDash, Uber, Lyft, Amazon Flex, like anything that was to the school, tech shout outs. Now I'm not doing quite as much, but Snorkel really does keep me busy. I was building decks. I'm trying to tell you guys, okay? Do you need housekeeping? If anyone out there is wanting to start a business, it's no joke. It doesn't matter how many jobs you have to have. It doesn't matter what you have to do. I would just say, do not ever, anyone, for any circumstances, ever depend on one stream of income. You have to have different streams of income, and then something else, make sure that they're all bringing something in. So if something else falls off, it's like, okay, I need to go over here and bump this up. But yes, we have to have a hustle mentality. So everything has to be legal, and you have to be willing to really, really put in about 60 to 80 hours a week. Because after you get the money, after you go out there and make the money, then you have to put the work in at home where you don't get paid, because that's what's going to actually bring everything into fruition.
The message that I really get from that is stay humble at the same time. We can build amazing things, but never for a minute think that it couldn't all come crashing down tomorrow, and help other people along the way. I think give people chances. And that leads me perfectly into trying to know what you do or what you've done within the AI space. And you're an expert AI contributor at Snorkel AI, as we discussed, and your role is really, well, literally helping train the large language models that power tools that millions of us use every single day. So I just want to understand a bit about that. What is that? How does it work? What do you do with that day to day?
So with the large language models, there are different types of models that come into play. We have to find the large language models' vulnerabilities. So let's just say in the beginning, we started like a knowledge probe. We're trying to get this data inside. And then we actually create an algorithm by constantly giving it data until it can't figure it out anymore. And then we have to feed it correct information until eventually these large language models are actually taking off and evolving on their own.
I think it's fascinating. And, none of us sit there thinking day to day, how does ChatGPT know all this stuff? But, you're the one actually teaching it to know all this stuff and getting it to know and dissect and work in the way it does. So it's really an incredible thing that you're doing. And I did note that one of your New Year's resolutions was to actually think more like AI. What did you mean? And has it actually changed how you think?
I believe that, okay, so AI, any type of a computing device only knows information that we give it. So I feel like that, remember how I just said that the AI is starting to evolve on its own? And so we're thinking, it knows what we taught it, and then it's like going on and going on and going on and going on and going on. So I just feel like we also need to remember that we're the humans. We're the humans. And AI actually, artificial intelligence, if anyone ever talks to artificial intelligence, they're programmed to almost like praise us. Like they see humans as being so high up, but we're making AI. We're putting AI up. So I feel like we need to think more highly of ourselves. Remember that we're the intelligent ones. They're just processing information based on an algorithm that we're also creating. And I think that we should see how AI is compiling this information and how they're putting everything together. I just think that we should remember that it's a tool. That's my
Yeah.
biggest thing. Think like how AI is computing, and don't forget that it's getting information from us, because without us, I mean, I guess it can keep going on, it can keep evolving, but once the data stops, it's got to get more data. It can only
Yeah.
go so far.
Without us, yeah. And where's that data coming from? It's coming from us. What's the honest truth, in your opinion, about red flags in AI that most people are not really paying attention to?
Letting AI do everything for them. People are stopping, they don't compute anymore. The human brain is the most powerful machine on the face of the planet Earth. We're so smart, and I feel like I don't want to say the word dumb because dumb is like actually you can't speak, but we're like bringing ourselves down by, like what happens if we have a national outage? What happens if people, like, I'm so glad that I graduated when I did with artificial intelligence, because that was our final semester where, shout out to Chris Francis, he talked about artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, and I was like, I still didn't understand what they were saying. I'm like, I did my little, because it was just during a discussion board. So they were talking about like something about AI, and they gave us like look up a prompt. I didn't get that you could use the whole thing to do all your homework.
Yeah.
So when I'm looking at engineers and somebody that I want to work for, I get it, because as someone that's just graduated, I've told people, I'm like, man, it's difficult to get started because you got artificial intelligence that has taken all the entry level jobs, which means people that graduate, guess what? You have to have 5 to 8 years experience, which is why I have to create that experience and partner with Snorkel and do odd jobs, because we have to make that experience. So they're kind of like, either you're not going to do anything or you're going to have to build your own business and get to work. Once I get to 5 to 8 years experience, I don't know if I'm going to be needing to work for someone else. But it's really scary the way the same machine that needed us to build it doesn't need us anymore. If that right there is not alarming, that's scary to me. That's just software engineering. They're seeing patients without seeing patients. Like you put the information
Mm.
in and it's prescribing medication. So I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I don't want to talk about that, but
No, I mean, that is something that I think most people would have
red
noticed
flag.
now is true. And look, another topic I just wanted to segue into it is the cyberbullying piece. You've been fairly public about being cyberbullied professionally. Why did you decide to speak up and what happened when you did?
Well, I spoke up, and I've really thought about it a few times and bringing it down. But the reason that I spoke up is because I'm not mentioning anything specific on here. Anybody can go and look and see what I'm talking about if they want to. But I worked as a volunteer for a company. I believe it was in the United Kingdom, or I forgot where it was. Um, but anyway, I worked for a company. It was a hospital system, and I did everything that they needed us to do. Because you're really supposed to kind of like really get the community awareness. So anyway, I did everything that they needed me to do, but then I was asked about doing something kind of off what the normal volunteer what the normal volunteer duties would be. But, as being a software engineer, I was like, okay, I can do that, because in my mind, I honestly, I thought about it. I was like, well, maybe I can, maybe if he's good, maybe if I show him, because he wanted me to do a report. He's like, can you take a look at my website? So as a software engineer, I'm like, okay, yeah, website, let's go. So I did that, and it was I think it was an 18-page report, screenshots, arrows, look here, all that stuff. So anyway, then he wanted me to do the make the changes, and that moved from volunteer, and which I did. I let him know, hey, as a volunteer, this is what I did. If you do
If
want
you
my
do want my
professional
professional.
services, this is what my rates are. So I'm assuming there was some offense that was taken from that, and that was threatened. That you can't use this as volunteer experience. And I believe that he tried to have my experience removed. I had to challenge that with LinkedIn and say that's why my post said I did the work. I did do the work. I mean, yes, I stepped away. That's fine. We'll, you know, cut ties here. But as far as, at the very least, you're not going to take my experience away from me. So I was able to keep my
Yeah,
experience up there. And the reason that I posted what I did was because I worked very, very hard to come as far as I've come. And I don't want someone to feel like they can at any time in the past or in the future come in and make any kind of threats to uh, minimize any work that I've done or to contact. I was threatened with they were going to contact my education institutions and my employers. So I can't allow that to happen without being
no,
able to have my voice. As a human rights advocate, it is my responsibility to stand up for others that are being bullied or unjustly, someone's treating them
absolutely.
unjustly. So I have to stand up for myself, as and that's exactly what I did.
Absolutely. We have to stand up for ourselves, and and that is respectable in itself. So many people will just let these things happen because they don't feel that burn to change things. But hopefully, hearing that you have done that will inspire others. And I must say, most people tend to pick one lane when with their lives, and I keep coming back to this, but you refuse to do that, and I love that. Why do you see, public health, medical technology, human rights, and AI as interconnected instead of separate?
Think that more is connected, but definitely our health. I mean, we're just here. This right here I need to make sure that my body is and my mind are good. So I can't make money. I can't do things. I can't focus if I don't make sure, even for mental health, people want to put a stigma on mental health so much. But if my brain is like, I really need a break or something's not right, how is that any different than someone saying that, oh my gosh, I'm feeling a flutter in my heart? As a matter of fact, your brain sends messages to your heart to pump. So I think that it's very important to be able to know what's going on in the medical technology specter. There's a lot of different medicines and all kinds of things that technology wise are being improved. Also, the medical side, I know so much stuff with policies and procedures. So if I hear things like malpractice as a provider rep, I was like, they can't do that. So I
Yeah.
just try to see there's so many different things, especially with artificial intelligence. How can artificial intelligence help this situation run smoothly? I just feel like everything kind of goes together. So I think more, but those are the things that I'm most passionate about. And I guess it's because when I went into working for the Department of Defense, I worked for TRICARE, which is the military health insurance. So I understand claims, I understand insurance, I understand a lot of medical terminology, and I understand also from the customer and from the patient. So I'm not just back there like loading authorizations. They used to come in and I used to hear. So I have that empathy, and that's why I want to fight for people so much. But I definitely am not going to let anybody to bully me. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, I agree. And I completely agree that everything is interconnected. And the more of that kind of holistic view we can have on things, the clearer the picture becomes. Understanding one thing helps understand another thing more. And we can't just have this blinkered view of things being completely separate. Look, you are built different. I want to know what that actually means to you and if it's a gift, a burden, or a bit of both.
Because my husband's here. Is it a burden? Well, I think that it's just really honestly, I wasn't built like this to start with. A lot of everything came from struggle. And I had to fall flat on my face. And let me tell you, I'm going to keep falling. And that mountain goat energy. We have to decide when we fall down as Capricorns and goats, we fall down on our knees. So that's our first chance to get back up. If anybody falls down and they don't get back up, that is a choice. So I had to fall down. I shared this with you before. Even with everything that I went through. I was in a marriage, like I said, that there was a lot of domestic issues and there was drinking. I didn't drink before, but then I turned to alcohol. I'm 8 years sober now, so I'm really, really glad to thank you. Next month, I'll be 8 years sober. And anyway, I used it as like a self-medication because it was like I was just so like, oh, everything is so terrible, boo, 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 go, go, go. No, no, no. It ruined everything. But I'm so glad. I'm not going to talk about what all happened, but I am so that God, he pulled the carpet right. He pulled the carpet from right underneath me. He said, "I'm gonna tell you what." Boom. And I just fell flat on my face, and literally the only thing I could do was look up and take his hand. And I just owe every single thing. I'm so glad that that happened because it was like a jolt. I feel
Yeah.
like things happen when people say things happen for a reason. They really don't know. Like, we get signs, and there are synchronicities and all kinds of things that go on in our life that say, "Hey, are you sure you want to go down this road?" So had to be schooled by God. I thank God so much for doing it, because if he wouldn't have done that, I wouldn't have had to struggle as much as I did, and I wouldn't have had to say, what am I going to do? And I wouldn't have had to make a plan, and I wouldn't have had to stick to that plan. I wouldn't have had to serve. I probably wouldn't have survived. So after that, then I was able to go to school. The first semester was really, really difficult. Like, it'd been 20 years. So I went back. I said, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. No, that's not for me. So then I took the next semester off, and then I said, I need to do this. So I went back, I think I made the dean's list 3 times. I ended up being the president of Student Government Association, the vice president of Phi Theta Kappa, and student rep. But I will tell you that there was a lot going on, and I had to, I did have to step down from some of it, because I had to it was really, really difficult trying to take on so much stuff and trying to walk. I think there was 60 people in my class when I started, and I was one of 4 and the only woman in software development that walked across the stage. Listen, everything is great. All these clubs, everything is super, super fun. But I really want to make sure that I graduate. So at the end of the day, I really, really appreciate Ivy Tech for everything. You made a really, really strong coder. I'm a really strong coder. Thank you, Chris.
Well, look, I think there's a lot in that, learning the hard way. And I think one thing that we all need to remember is that, the setbacks are what make us stronger and drive us forward. And, there'll be a lot of people out there who, everybody feels like a failure at points in their life. And so this is inspirational as well for that reason, that all those things had to happen for you to fight back so hard to get to where you are. And on that note, I just wonder, what's the advice that you wish someone had given you 10 years ago?
I think I would say know what you want. And it's really difficult because if we don't know what we want, because one of my favorite classes in software development school was at the very end, it was project management. Like, I love project management, guys. If you guys need a project manager, I'm telling you, I'm getting ready to get this PMP, and it's over for all you guys. I'm going to figure out a way to make an AI project manager out of me. But anyway, project management, everything is temporary. A project, the first thing you learn is that it's temporary. I love Snorkel AI, and they're all projects. So I'm like, how long is this project? Because we know it's not forever. But every project is temporary. But what I learned was that you can reach any goal in life, any goal. I mean, I sat there and we had to figure out how to get to my goal is the moon. My goal is the moon. That's why I had to try to figure out how to get to the moon. It used to be to get my PhD, which I still want to. That's not my ultimate goal, because when I get it, then what? Am I going to get another degree? My goal is the moon, because I can't reach it. Like, I don't, I want to reach it. I can see it. I can see it. It's right there. So as long as I keep trying to get to the moon, then maybe I'll at least see some stars along the way. And that's how I've accomplished so much, because I keep my goal. So that when I look back, people are like, how'd you do that? You're so lucky. Luck has nothing to do with any of this stuff, for one thing. Luck has nothing to do with anything. Just everybody, you're going to have to work really, really hard. But what I learned is that you can accomplish any goal. If you've got to go get milk, the first thing you have to do is break it down. Well, do I have gas in my car? So you have to break it all down into little bitty pieces, and then you can get it. But you have to know where you're going. You have to have a map. We can create our own maps, and we do not need to wait for anybody to do anything for us. We need to do everything by ourselves. Do not buy anything unless you can afford 3. So don't take out too many student loans, and really just, yes, have a really big ultimate goal, but find out how to reach that goal and break it down into smaller goals.
Yeah, I hear you, and I think that's perfect advice. And you're not a CTO who happens to be a single mother. You're a single mother building technology. That all of that kind of reframes the approach that you take to life and going forward. And what's next for Tiv?
I'm starting another business that I'm going to make into a 501 501(c)(3), I believe it is. And I really want to help both mothers and fathers that are custodial parents, where they're having a little bit of a gap or some way that can, maybe I can help bridge the gap. So also to help myself and my situation and all the other custodial parents out there that they're not able to collect child support because there is a loophole where once you cross state lines. But so if anyone is interested in learning more about that, I'm working on some different patents and some other things. But yeah, I am really interested in using the influence that I have and the information that I learned as a software development to make a lot of change for the good. I may have to
How
make myself
exciting.
into an AI bot for that so I don't get.
I'd love to clone you. That's fantastic. And look, where can people actually find you? Where do they reach out, if people have something that they'd be interested in working with you on?
Well, if anyone wants to reach out to me, thank you for asking. They can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn, Tiv Mohammed, as well as by email. It's tiv@tamgsolutions.com.
Perfect. And look, Tiv, is there anything else you would like to share today before we close out?
I just want to share how wonderful this process has been. You are absolutely amazing. You are a light, just the light that's emanating from you. You really inspire me. You really inspire me. Your daughter
Likewise.
inspires me. And I wish you could talk a little bit about yourself right now. I know your listeners know, but you are absolutely a light. And it's just
Oh,
something that I've really, really needed in my life. So thank you so much.
thank you, Tiv. Well, I think it's, women supporting women and supporting everybody. And just thank you so much for saying the things that matter, even when it costs you something. And that's what being built different actually means. I truly believe that. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'd love to catch up with you again in a year's time and see where you're at and see what's happened next and follow you on your journey. Thank you so much.
I'd love to. Thank you. Bye.
All right.